code mash. There we go, all right. Wait till the storm passes here. All right, we're in the clear. Let's go camping. My name's Damian Synadinos. I'm with Ineffable Solutions, and this is Avoiding Bugs at Test Camp. I was up here a couple years ago giving a lightning talk called Raise Your Hand If You Know the Answer. That's not a talk. That's not a question. That's the name of the talk. Raise your hand if you know the answer. In that talk, I use proprioception and epistemology to stress the importance and necessity of testing as a feedback loop. So if you're on board and you agree that testing is both important and necessary, then the next logical question is, who does it? Who tests? As a career tester, I've debated and discussed this many, many times for many years, and generally speaking, with very broad brushstrokes, the answers generally fall into just a few camps. So let's talk about those camps and answer that question. Who tests? The first camp is devs test their own work. I sometimes call this dot your I's and cross your T's, or look before you leap. Those are just cutesy ways of talking about unit testing or test-driven development. Is anybody in this camp, do you believe that developers should test their own work? Show of hands. Good, I see a lot of hands. That's good because there's a lot of advantages to this technique. Early detection, fast feedback, and resolution loops. If a developer is testing their own work and they see a bug, a problem, they've detected it almost as fast as you can. And the feedback is instantaneous. They're able to address that and resolve it very, very quickly. So that's a great benefit of this particular approach. Another benefit is deep product and code knowledge. It's likely that a developer swimming in code all day knows the product from the inside out. They have very deep knowledge. They're intimate with the code. That allows them to find problems that others might miss. But there's a drawback too. Sometimes this depth of knowledge creates too much intimacy, and they can have lack of critical distance. They're unable to be objective about their own work. They have biases, which leads to blind spots, which leads to missed bugs. That's not a good thing. There's other drawbacks too. Multiple hats. If a developer is not developing and they're taking time testing, they're splitting their time. They're not doing their primary task. Another drawback might be limited testing skills. Now, development is a skill with sub-skills. Testing is a distinct, different skill with sub-skills. And of course, there's a lot of overlap, but they're distinct, different roles and responsibilities in the same way that an author and an editor may have overlap, but they're distinct roles. So a developer may have fewer test skills than somebody that devotes their career towards testing, and that may cause them to miss certain types of bugs. Another drawback is, let's be frank, lack of desire. How many developers really want to test? That's not why they got in this business. They got in this business to code and create. So those are some drawbacks. What about the next camp? It's similar, dev test another developer's work. Sometimes I call this two heads are better than one, or outsource your blind spots. Again, they use unit testing, TDD, sometimes they do code reviews, a few common ways that developers can test another developer's work. Anybody in this camp? All right, there's some hands out there. Test your fellow developers' work. There's good. Let's talk about this. Slightly later detection. Since someone has passed you their work, it's not immediate. So the feedback and resolution loop might be a little bit slower than prior. That's not necessarily too bad. It's not too much delayed. What about this? They still have deep product and code knowledge, allowing them to find bugs that other people without that intimacy might miss. And it solves the previous problem about critical distance. These developers don't have the same blind spots because they didn't code it themselves. They might be able to see things that the first developer might have missed. But the same drawbacks as before, multiple hats, limited testing skills, and lack of desire. These things can be detrimental to this particular approach. What about this camp? Who tests? Testers test, of course. Sometimes I call this, it takes a village, or safety in numbers. How do testers test? A variety of ways. Testers have a lot of tools in their tool belt, a lot of testing skills and approaches and techniques and methodologies that they can reach for at the right time and apply towards this testing task. Who thinks testers should test? Good, I'm glad to see some hands there. Good, well, obviously, there's benefits and drawbacks to this as well. It's even later detection. It's a little further down the line. And perhaps the process of a tester finding a problem and getting that problem to somebody that can actually take action on it takes a little bit more time. So the feedback and resolution loop is a little bit slower. They still have perhaps shallower knowledge. Maybe they don't understand the implementation or they can't read code. These are generalities, but sometimes it's arguable that a tester may not have the intimacy or depth of knowledge of the code or product that a developer might, and therefore they may miss certain types of bugs. They also are allowed to have critical distance, which allows them to catch bugs that the original developer might have missed, and there's other benefits too. They are wearing a single hat. All testers do is test. That's fantastic. That's what they dedicate their career to. They also have diverse and deep testing skills. As I mentioned, lots of testing tools in their tool belt that they can reach for at the right time. And finally, they want to test. This is why testers got in the business. They want to do it. If you want to do it, there's probably a chance that you're going to do it better than if you don't want to do something. Let's talk about the last camp. The last camp is customers test. Sometimes I call this, throw it to the wind. Fix it in post. Take your chances. How do they do it? Roughly by just letting customers use it. That's why I have test in quotes. It's not real testing. Customers just use the product and they run into problems. There's drawbacks. Sometimes it's late detection, not just late, but too late. By the time a customer detects a problem, it might be too late. If it's a small problem, maybe it's not a big deal. But if it's a large problem, if it's a crash or data loss or loss of life, that could be catastrophic. It could have financial implications, legal implications. It could degrade trust, and all sorts of bad things happen by the time a customer encounters a problem. Also, what about feedback loops? They're very, very slow. If a customer encounters a problem, it might be very cumbersome for them to report that back to somebody that can actually take action. And the customer is under no obligation to report these problems. They might not report them at all and just live with the anguish as their trust continues to deteriorate and cause further problems. Is there any benefits to this? Sure, their opinion matters. Quality is value to someone that matters of something at some time. In this case, the customer is the person that matters the most. Their opinion is the final word. If a customer says that something is high quality, it doesn't matter what the product team says. The customer rules. It's high quality. If the customer has a problem, it doesn't matter what other people think because the customer is right. That's a problem to them. So, I've described a few answers to this question, who test. Which one of these camps is correct? None of them alone, but all of them together. By combining these different test strategies, it helps you ensure a more holistic, complete test strategy, helps you avoid bugs. At test camp, there's room for everybody. Thank you very much.